Hello, everybody. All right. I think I am going to. I know we're still waiting on Anna. But I think that I am going to call this meeting to order at 7:02. Hold on. Get somebody else to admit here. That's what I get for trying to just start it. All right. So I call this meeting of the Shutesbury Elementary School Committee to order. Our first agenda item is public hearings. And so I know we have at least one number that I don't recognize. I'm not sure if that's a member of the public, but if there is any members of the public who would like to address the committee tonight, I would ask that they make themselves known. Okay. Hearing none, we're going to review the agenda and perpetual calendar. So obviously our agenda tonight has a number of different things. We've got our normal pieces. We're going to hear about some of the capital projects stuff that's gone on in the last month. There's also been a Green Communities Grant meeting, which we're going to hear some reporting out from. I also have one, I guess, sort of new agenda item. We're going to talk hopefully a little bit about a constituent who reached out about a concern that they had regarding the use of the gymnasium. And yeah, so that's kind of our agenda. As far as the perpetual calendar goes, here in December, we're at a point where it looks like there is the superintendent's budget is on the list for December, preliminary budget. And our town is the only other thing that was really on there. And so I think that's kind of in hiatus as far as I know right now. Coming up, we've also got, there's a poll for another meeting of this multi-committee meeting as there was this past week. So there was a multi-committee meeting in town on December 16th at like 5 o'clock. There's been a poll put out for the next one. So maybe if you were there before that was sent out, I could also send that out to everyone else so that they can fill it in. There was a number of days over 2 weeks in the middle of January that they're looking for availability. And there's also sorry, go ahead.
Can I just ask, so this is about the Green Communities Grant funding? What's this multi?
I think so. I don't know. Like I just got an email saying that at the last meeting that they decided that it would be good to have another meeting. And so I guess they're going to do it next month. I don't know if it is still on the Green Committee piece, or maybe Nate or Anna will be able to talk to that after. I don't know. And then also the Finance Committee is going to have their yearly meeting with us. I think Susie said last month that it will probably be in February. So those things are coming up as well. So yeah, so that moves us on to warrants.
Okay, so I have 5 warrants, 2 accounts payable, 3 payroll. For accounts payable, I have 3013 from December 9th for $7,852.90, and 3014 from December 23rd for $5,342.70. For payroll, 311 from November 24th for $91,907.19. 312 from December 8th for $90,675.43, and 313 from December 22nd for $91,339.07. And those are the warrants I have.
Okay. looks like we don't have any gifts, but we have a number of grants in there, which have to be voted for acceptance. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So it looks like we have an IDA grant of 2,565. We've got the Title I of 17,070. Title II of 2,500. Title this is where I'm going to start getting nervous. Title IV, yes.
Yep.
10. I wasn't the math teacher. I always, I don't use Roman numerals except here. $10,000, and then we've got the REAP grant of $18,073. So we're going to need a move to accept those.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, move, and we have a second. All in favor? Mayui?
Catalano, aye.
Jack, aye.
Longcoat aye.
All right. It is unanimous. Those are accepted. Next up is the approval of our minutes from November 20th, 2025. So let's have a move, and then if there's any discussion, we can go for it.
So moved.
Okay. Did I see you, Nate, second that?
Yeah, I want to second it, but there's a couple of things I want to talk about.
Right on. Well, now it's open. Now it's open for discussion. Go ahead.
Okay. There's a couple parts. There's a part F. At the beginning, it says unfinished business, and in section A, if you guys are looking at the minutes, section A, fourth line down, there's a part that's stating Nate said in May. Do you guys see that part? Anyway, it's talking about how, and then it says it took 2 weeks to get in contact with the building committee. And I just wanted to it kind of makes it sound like that's a long time. And I was wondering if there's a better way of saying it took 2 weeks, because, that seems like a pretty fast turnaround. I don't know if you guys.
You could just say, we met to discuss this in June, and 2 weeks later, the building committee got involved, right?
Yeah, or we could,
I guess you could keep it passive. Keep it passive like that a little bit.
Something like that, Trevor?
Change about to, and it only took 2 weeks.
Something like that. That's right. That's exactly.
I don't know if we have to go that far. I like the way that Trina made it sound like it was neutral without being abusive.
Right. Well, that's what I was trying to like when I presented, I was trying to say, come up with, come to your own conclusion on that. But my conclusion is that's a pretty timely turnaround. And so I want that to be expressed in that minutes. Also, later on, it's talking about the tractor as 24,000. I may have misspoke. It's 34,000. Okay. So those are the only two things I caught.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other points for discussion or editing? Man, these minutes are so much better than ones I do.
Yeah, all right. Pretty expensive.
Yeah,
they are.
What do you say? Oh yeah, mine are volunteer. So we have a move. We have a second. We've got a couple of additions. All in favor? Mayui.
Catalano, aye.
Jack, aye.
Longcoat aye.
Okay. So that passes unanimously again. All right. So we're moving on to unfinished business and updates, which is the capital projects building process. Speak carefully, Nate.
Yeah, I know. Well, a lot's gone on. I have a little presentation I want to share, but I do want to talk about just kind of what has transpired since our last meeting. We got the town administrator on board. I was contacted by the Berkshire Design Group, and I discussed the parking lot with them. They are a all-in-one kind of surveyor and civil engineer, and they do project management as well. They've done the Irving Elementary School playground and different elementary schools, and they're working right now with the Deerfield elementary school and repaving their parking lot to the tune of 1.2 million. That was kind of a big wake-up call for me. They discussed the need to come in and kind of do a survey. They needed to drill down about 18 inches to kind of see what the substrat is of our parking lot and see if it needs to be regraded and what needs to be torn up. I became pretty anxious with the whole thing, like listening to him. I was like, this is gonna, he was asking about wetlands and all this stuff. And I just was like, you really need to discuss this with our town administrator. And so he was really eager to come out, and we tried to get everybody, he wanted to get everybody out there. And I just want Haley to kind of take the lead there and just see if this is the route we want to go to, if we want to do something more simple. But then there was this whole thing with the green initiative grants. And so we are discussing now kind of, I'm going to put in a request, an application for this parking lot for the capital projects in February. I'm going to change my price tag a little bit to reflect this new reality. But we're going to look into these grants. So one grant is, a lot of these are for, one is for a heat pump, a ground source heat pump. And, Anna's not here, and we were going to talk about this in the next section, but February 13th is the deadline for this application, but it's potential of getting up to $5 million to deal with our heating system and get a ground source heat pump, and the idea is to kind of tie all this in and have the parking lot be part of that. We're like, oh, well, the heat pump has to be underneath the basketball court, and we have to replace the tarmac and everything. So that's $5 million going towards the playground to the parking lot. We'll see. That's this committee that's going to meet next month that Jeremy was talking about. So there's some pushback, from whether we want to we'll have everything together in time for the February 13th deadline. So we'll see. And, there's talk about whether we want to even focus on the school or whether we want to focus on the town hall and the Spears building. So yeah, again, that's stuff we can talk about in the other section. I did want to kind of try to share this little presentation if I can. Let's see if this.
You should be. I did just go in and make
okay.
this.
Okay, let's see if I can do this. Let me see if I can. Can you see that?
Yep.
Shutesbury Elementary School parking lot and driveway sidewalk repair, 2025.
Looks very professional.
Thank you. Well, I put this little map together. I ended up meeting with Matt Foster, the custodian, and we discussed kind of the things we can do, and I put together this little map of the parking lot. There you can see in kind of orange is the building, and the gray is the tarmac in the parking lot. Highlighted in yellow.
This is very nice.
Thank you.
Well done.
It was kind of fun to put together. I through Laura at the front office. There was some town meeting, and I was able to get some of these numbers from her, and she emailed me that afternoon talking to, I forget who it was, but they gave me kind of rough estimates for that back. You can see the 100 feet by 80 feet is that kind of basketball court area. You can see at the front there's about a 300-foot driveway. And anyway, and those bright yellow are kind of the problem areas that need to be addressed sooner than later. So this is that 24,000 that's already set aside. And we discussed so I'm just going to share some photos. Here's a photo of the bike rack area. This area was replaced, Matt said, by the previous custodian. He just kind of did it. I don't think he put rebar in there. So it's kind of really deteriorated. This is kind of done fairly recently, but it's deteriorated pretty quickly. Here are some cracks. These are the cracks by this is by the preschool entrance. And, the kids are waiting to get in and they've tripped on those like cracks right there. So these need to be addressed. And I think, the idea of putting blacktop there is that it melts faster. It's easier to deal with and getting the ice off. The other section is this front entranceway. As you can see around that bench there, that is coming up. This is kind of near the flagpole there. It's a little close up of that corner. There's this like area in the center island there. There's these faux rocks, these cement rocks that are deteriorating. And here you can see those bricks that I'd mentioned last time with those little knobs. You can see some have been severed off there. So those are the things that really need to be replaced. Now, there is also this issue with the snow removal and the tractor. So, there's 34,000 that we need to replace this tractor. Now, the reason why we have a tractor is because the town doesn't take snow plowing seriously at the school. And here's some photos this is from Saturday after the storm. And you can see how kind of still there's a lot of snow that's left behind. And it's pretty icy, pretty slippery, pretty slushy mess. And so Matt has this tractor that can kind of help supplement for the kind of, job that the highway department is or isn't doing. And he only has so much time during the day to do his job, so he can only do so much. And here's the tractor that he wants replaced. Here is the quote. This is from last year, so this is the $34,000 quote. So he and I discussed this a little more. I brought this to the Capital Planning Committee last time, and there was some pushback there about with the new library, if we can get the town to kind of take these facilities more seriously, and if we can get them to plow them and deal with the sidewalks. And Matt said, and I talked to Matt about this, and he said, it would be great if we had the town, to do the majority of the plowing, and he could do his thing and do the sidewalks with two of these units, the Aaron's Platinum snow plow as an example. So these are two of these at $3,000 a piece. That's $6,000. So, there's there's that. So that could save us, a bunch of money.
I think it's important to note too, it's on its last legs and it has been for a while. And anytime that he goes to get it fixed, we lose it for months at a time. And it's a considerable amount of money for even just the smallest repair.
Yeah. So.
Can I just ask, is the tractor used for any other uses?
It is not.
Okay. So the main difference between doing two snow blowers versus the tractor, like the snow removal would still be doable for him with the time he has, or I'm just thinking about the trade-offs.
Yeah. I mean, that's the idea, is that he'd have time to be able to go around, I assume having another custodian doing the second, the two snow blowers and going around just doing their supplemental stuff.
Really depends on the timing of the storm.
Yeah.
I also I mean, my concern here, and I'm not like advocating for a $34,000 tractor, but like my experience of our spring storms the last few years is that they tend to be really kind of slushy and wet.
Yeah.
And I know this is a $2,900 snowblower, so I would hope it's better than mine. But like, I just worry that that's not the more slush and the more wet kind of storms we get. That snow blowers won't be up to the challenge the way that the tractor was in terms of cleaning out and around the edges.
That's a fair point. I think those errands are insanely effective. They're incredible machines. So yeah, I think they're kind of built for this kind of stuff. And if you saw that one had like Caterpillar treads and stuff, so it's a beast.
Okay.
And that would be the top of the line, and I think that would be the kind of idea is get the top of the line, best snow blower. But the idea is to kind of coordinate and kind of, create these relationships with the highway department and kind of, work with, that was a bit, that was what was really exciting about this meeting at the other day with all these people is that we were all talking about all this stuff. That I feel like I've been kind of trying to figure out for the past year. We were talking about the boiler, and we were talking about the oil tank, and we were talking about the parking lot, and it was pretty incredible. And then with the potential of having grant money to kind of be able to deal with this stuff is pretty awesome. And I came out of there pretty hopeful.
Great.
I think Frank, advocated. Susie was there. She advocated for us in a really great way. And there was pushback. There's definitely, as always, there's pushback. But I think if we can get 3 people there, if we can create a quorum, we would have a real presence there, and be able to really kind of assert, our agenda or whatever the heck we have going on,
Okay. So in order for the snow blowers to be the thing, we'd have to make sure that DPW. Because I mean, I know that there's been some, I know the DPW is shorthanded right now. As far as I can tell, I'm not super tied in, but it sounds like they've been catching some guff around here. But they're super shorthanded. And I just wonder, if that's a reality. But what's the timeline on needing either a new tractor or those snow blowers? Is it an immediate need? Is it a this year need? Are we looking at?
I think so. I'm meeting. We have another January 8th, I believe, is our next capital planning meeting. So I'm going to bring this presentation to them. And I'm going to present them with this 3,000, with this snowblower concept, because this is me like taking their feedback, going back to Matt with their feedback, and him coming back and saying, "Here's a compromise." So, we'll see what happens in January and see what they say. I'm going to try to put in what we're trying to do is get. I have a thing that goes out to like 2030, 2045 or something. They're trying to really project pretty far in the future of what the town's needs are. So I'm going to try to just, and I, would suggest this if we're going to make a handbook, Jeremy, like for whoever's on the capital planning, committee, put in those requests every year for what needs to get done so that it's on the docket, so that we can kind of get them, if it's not happening next year, and so we can get it on the thing and get it talked about. So
get things in well ahead of time. Like look ahead.
I mean, there was some pushback about how we spend. We already spend tens of thousands of dollars on the oil anyway. What's the big deal? And I kind of push back and say, well, 1 month was $34,000, and when the heat came on in October, it wasn't working. So we really need to deal with this now, and the reality is
the reality is we're going to need to deal with it. We're going to need a new heating system at some point.
Yeah.
No matter what, and to be looking ahead at other possibilities of ways to save ourselves money when we have to replace. If you're planning for it, you can make the plan for it, right? But if you end up having a crisis situation, you're going to end up just replacing it with an oil burner, and then you're stuck with that for however long. So
and then Frank was saying how he, the oil tank, we could possibly get 10 years out of this ground oil tank, and I just kind of was like, well, but we were probably not going to get that from the parking lot. You're not going to get another 10 years from the parking lot. The parking lot should have been done 10 years ago.
Right.
And it's been in deferred maintenance for 10 years. And so we don't want to put down, get Clark's to come out and put down a bunch of new, tarmac and then have to tear it up in 10 years. When it could be, 25-year tarmac, what I mean? So, it was really great to be able to express all these and kind of get everybody talking about it and getting everybody like on the same page, because I don't think that has been the case. So I was pretty psyched about that, and we'll see where it goes. I'm sorry that Ann's not here to kind of give more information about the heat pump stuff is a little bit out of my. Susie has something to say, but yeah.
All right, Susie, go ahead.
So I believe that the Green Communities grants, there's a February deadline and then there's an August deadline, and I believe the heat pumps can fall into the process that would look at August. But until a master plan where everything that is known is put down and then it's sorted into a logical order, that has to happen. And what happens in a diffuse structure is that people don't all know. They're ill-informed. They may end up doing resistant behavior, but it's really mostly a lack of knowledge. And so the meeting that was last night was helpful to begin to recognize that there were other concerns that hadn't been shared, and that the drive to be a decarbonization leader should not be the drive. The drive is to figure out what's needed and then make a logical sequence of this. And there are lots of pieces that are appealing, like, oh, let's do heat pumps. Well, how does that fit in to the parking lot? How does that fit into the 30,000 gallon tank? How does that fit into, now there's more discussion about canopy solar. So hopefully that meeting will yield a group of people that heard all that will write it down in some logical order before we hire any consultants, and then get the consultants that weave it all together into a coherent plan. But what was clear from yesterday is, like, one of the people involved was saying, well, there's forced hot air for heat in the school. It's like, no. And so one building person said, I don't think that's what that is. Right. So it's like, okay, then we can see we need fact gathering, not opinion gathering. And then once we gather facts, we can put it in logical order. So it's a little concerning to me that that still hasn't been done. And so the question around the oil tank, that can last, I believe it can last 10 years. The oil tank was not the problem.
No.
Water in the fuel was the problem.
Exactly.
And so then people are saying, oh, the boiler's no good. Excuse me. The boiler wasn't the problem either. And so it was jumping around last night still in a way that makes me want to tear my hair out.
Yeah.
So it doesn't help to have a lot of people, although you understand that people can show their their concern, but you really need to have a very careful laying out of what has to happen. But decarbonization and the way we are in this planet, it will move away from oil fired water. It will. But the order to do that, the process to do that, has to be figured out But I believe right now they're looking more at the August submission deadline. And I believe that it could be for the heat pumps. And they might figure out where to dig the holes or trench for the heat pump in a way that doesn't interfere with the other plans that are trying to be settled. But they need to know that. And that's, it still makes me frustrated to hear how it's not very coherent. But the need for coherency might be coming clear.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm not more coherent. I'm trying to figure this out as I go.
I think you're pretty coherent.
Thanks.
But it's all coherency between all the different organizations. That's all the different committees and boards.
I think you're right, Susie. Like a logical order of fix it. Like what needs to be fixed, where we are with the current ages and stages of all the things in the past that have been recommended and might not have gone through, because we just keep spinning our wheels. Like they're gonna I know what Jeremy, I've got an idea of what Jeremy's going to be talking about with there's a system in the gym, that the divider that goes up and all the components that are breaking down, and we've been really limiting how many times we open and close it. So it's at least $15,000 of a fix that I haven't even brought to capital.
Wow.
The capital projects, because I'm trying to prioritize heat. We gotta put the heat on, like that sort of thing. And I would love a meeting of just logical order of all the systems in the building, so we can be very clear and transparent with people, so they can make the ultimate decisions on what they want to fix when.
That's part of the agenda, is getting Frank and Stephen out here and doing a full facility audit. Yeah, for sure. And it's frustrating for me. Again, like we met in June. If we had gotten that ball rolling in June, we'd be in better shape for a February 13th deadline. But yeah, something else. There were mention of like the canopy, the EV. Canopy. One thing about that is having chargers on the school grounds, having public chargers on the school ground. I think I just read one of the policies, and you're not allowed to have anybody on the school grounds that's not a staff or student or something like this. So you can't have a public charging station on the school.
They have plans for public stations other places, at the library and at town hall.
Exactly. So
the thing that will probably come up for canopy is storage, and then battery storage, and that's still being sort of fought off by some people and joined by others. The other piece that came up to the FinCom, so we met right after decarbonization, we had a regular meeting, is to they agreed to fund the $6,200 for the tank water polishing bill. But what it highlighted is how and who defines what is maintenance, what is repair, what is emergency repair, and and what is capital plan based funding, blah, blah, blah. That, again, has to be coordinated by the select board. The FinCom has an emergency fund. That's why we rationalized to pay the money for that bill. There's also thinking, well, maybe the school should pay the bill, and as their year unwinds, they should say, oh, we're going to need that money, and then the FinCom transfers. So there's lots of strategies. Of course, that didn't work very well last year for different reasons, but there's strategies, but there's definitions that aren't clear. And I feel like the school has done things that have been called maintenance that maybe should have been categorized as town building repairs. And, the building committee was the people that initiated that check on the tank. And so last night, when we're talking about who should pay, it's like, well, maybe Frank should pay, because that building, they have a fund and it's called repairs. I mean, so those words have to be more clearly defined. And then I think all of the departments need to participate at some level. The school has one of the biggest budgets. So there's a sense that they have money, but that's not how you define maintenance. It's not.
That's what I was just going to say, is like last year we end up, we end up cannibalizing our technology fund. We end up doing like, and we're trying to be, good stewards of our money, and we're trying to keep the town's financial picture in mind. But like, it doesn't really feel like that's gonna. It doesn't really feel. This is not like, people don't pay attention to town government as closely as they could, right? So like, people don't know these things, and so I understand. Like, you look at it, it's like, wow, this is a huge portion of our town budget. But the idea that we can like front bills for things that are maintenance and repair at our school, and then somehow just see if we have enough leftover money, and if not, hope on a promise that we'll get our budget balanced at the end of the year is not a very sustainable or correct way of feeling.
It's not a equitable process. It needs to be clear and defined. And the thing that happened, I believe, is that Becky Torres was in government, town government, long enough to sort out some of this and direct where the project should be considered repaired or maintenance or blah, blah, blah. She did that. When she left, we're back to having new people kind of at every level that have to go back through this. Maybe Shannon can tell us how some other schools define that maintenance versus repair versus emergency, and then we can adopt a clearer definition that applies to all the buildings and all the equipment in town.
Townwide policy. Susie, this should not be open to interpretation every time something comes up.
Susie, so if we want to address this, though, where is the avenue to do that? Did you say that this is sort of who controls these definitions is an open question, or is that something that select board, FinCom, us, who defines this? How can we actually do something?
It's something like the decarbonization meeting where you sit down, not with a bazillion people, there were a lot, but you say, who are the people that should have part of this discussion? And it's obvious, it's clearly like the town administrator has been administrating it, but Becky had a body of knowledge to work from. We don't have that right now. But I think you end up looking at how other best practices are in other towns, and you hammer it out. And so I'd say the FinCom is going to be part of it. Capital planning will be part of it. The select board, and then I believe the departments should have a way to define what they see in their budget as repair, maintenance. And we actually ran through this a little bit with the fire department, because almost $11,000 of their budget was going to inspections. And that was called maintenance. And so when you have to go then take a wheel off of something and put it back on, you didn't have any money. So there was a boost for them to do that. And I just wanted to call the 11,000 inspections, because their equipment has to be inspected and tagged as this is working. And it's multiple inspectors. So anyways, each group is going to come to it with the knowledge of what their costs are and how to sort them out. And then maybe we'll negotiate. Okay, that sounds like maintenance. That sounds like repair. That sounds like an emergency one-off. And I would say things that happened around the boiler nozzle, the water, and the tank really should all have been considered emergency repairs. But if we do that, the FinCom's reserve didn't have that money, didn't have all the money that you had to spend on that. So we'll have to figure out a process. And right now we're into the budget planning, and there's so many things to be thinking about and working on. I'm thinking, don't shelve this, because it's really a part of everybody's budget.
So then is that something that we could align on as a group, so that our messaging for how we divide these things is clear before we even come to other groups?
You should begin to think about it. What are those words, and how do you put things in categories? When I heard Ann talking about replacing the front door, it's like, okay, what kind of thing is that? Is that a maintenance?
Yeah,
maybe. It's certainly more maintenance than dealing with the nozzle that was a problem, and it was causing a series of problems. So y'all can think about it, and should sort of come up with some working ideas, and then and we need to then discuss it as a group, because there's different. It's the highway is all equipment, all of it. And when the grader breaks down, I'd call that a problem. Half the roads need the grader. So anyways, we have to figure it out.
You know, I think something about that too is that I was hoping that last meeting we would get a little more clarity on what was going on. You know, I've been pretty overwhelmed, honestly, about what is going on with the boiler, and I was really hoping that Frank would have been here last meeting and give us that clarity. I think that is kind of an initial step in us being able to say, okay, well, this is that, and this, because you know, we're not even on the same page of what's going on and what's wrong and what the problems are. And so I think we need that information. We need that camaraderie with those other departments. This is kind of what I'm talking about. Like, I want to try to figure out these things with the highway. I don't want to have contentious relationships with these other departments. I want to try to figure this out with them. I think, you know, about going to a select board meeting, it's kind of putting a presentation together. You know, there was concerns I brought up a little while ago that the select board came through. You know, there was one concern about, you know, class sizes and how their class sizes are so small. And last time we had our meeting, Anne presented, you know, a list of class sizes, and they're pretty big. And since then, I've heard that, you know, there's a second baby boom in town.
Yeah.
You know, there's another baby boom coming up, which is different from like Swift River. Swift River has a baby boom that's going to, you know, bubble that's going to go through of a preschool of 27 preschoolers. You know, we have this large preschool class, and all those preschoolers are now having little siblings. And so there's a second, you know, so we have to, you know, prioritize the school. You know, it's yeah, we can't let these things slide. And yeah, anyway, that's my rant.
Yeah. All right, Shannon and Susie, I see still have hands up.
I'll take my hand down.
Yeah. I say to Susie's question about how other districts, and I'm happy to have that conversation. I think every town is municipality runs a little bit differently. Swift River is a region, so there's a lot more, you know, when I say autonomy, the school district takes the lead on a lot of things. But one thing that does happen is in Irving, I'm invited to the department meetings, and so they're not always my favorite thing to go to, right? Because a lot of times but it's really helped me to understand what are the priorities of the town. And either I go or the principal goes. You know, we sometimes tag team that, but it gives a better picture. It helps form relationships where you can have those conversations. And it's something maybe we need to think about, is having a school capital planning committee. Caitlin goes to a lot of those. When we have something that's coming up, we invite the town manager to come and represent that, so that he's always in the know about what's coming down our pike.
Right.
And they leverage a lot of resources. Like, we had some sidewalk repair that had to happen, and he sent the DPW guy out there to look and say, you know, what can we do internally, and what can be done before the, you know, first frost and all that. So I think it's just about setting a structure where that happens. And I'm happy to be a part of it. I know Caitlin is happy because sometimes it's a money piece, and I'll often say, you know, Caitlin and I will go in tandem because she certainly is much more versed on what is the finance avenues we have as a school. And so I'll put myself out there that I'm happy to go to any of those meetings. But they have to be put on my radar.
Okay, so we have the next thing on the agenda was the Green Committee's grant discussion, and the February 2026 School Committee policy meeting date discussion vote. So the first thing would be the Green Committee's grant. Is there anything else that we need to kind of talk about with that, or do we feel like we've kind of gotten the overview at this point?
The door was fixed, and it was like $6,000. So just, you know, the internal parts were fixed.
Okay, great.
There was like a talk of a green schools grant that was also an August deadline. So we'll find out more information. I'm sorry that Anna's not here. We talked a bit yesterday, like after the meeting, just kind of regrouped about what was going down. So I was really hoping she'd kind of fill us in and give us more information. But yeah, we'll have more information about all this stuff in January.
Okay. Susie.
So I think we need to know very clearly when those deadlines are and for what grants and what those grants will cover. And so I think ECAC, and Anna's not on ECAC, but Nathan is, but her partner is. But I think maybe I will email ECAC and say we want to see a very clear time line and which grants come when and what those grants can provide. They did a report. I don't think I see it in there. I'll read it again, but I'll also ask them. Those are the kinds of clarities that we all need. And like, I'm not sure why Anna knows what she does about it. But oftentimes you have to go more to the source. And she could have helpful knowledge, but we need somebody to commit to what the grants are and the time schedule and what those grants will allow you to pursue.
Okay. I think I can email you guys. I think some of the stuff right now that Nate had sent out yesterday. See if we can get this to you guys right now.
While you're doing that, Shannon,
Yep.
Did you have some thoughts that you wanted to add with that too?
Nope, sorry, I just hadn't lowered my hand. Sorry.
That's all right. Okay. So I guess we don't it feels like we've kind of talked about the Green Committee's grant. So the other piece would be this February 2026 school committee date, which I guess I have to open up my calendar here so that I can actually see that. I know this happens every year. You'd think that we would catch it before now, but
Yeah,
you guys
so
are catching it.
It falls during the winter recess.
Right. Sorry, I just want to see what other dates we have here. So usually we can either move it to the week before or the week after is what we do. I just want to get the actual dates, and for some reason, whenever I get
or the 5th.
Oh, I'm sorry, Susie, what was that?
19th of February or the 5th of March is on either side of.
So, well, okay. So then maybe that would make the most sense if we can to just agree to do the 19th. Hold on a second. So 5th?
No, the 19th is break.
Yeah.
No, the 19th is break, right?
It would have to be the week before or the week after, which is the 12th, the 26th.
12th or the 26th. Okay. Nope, sorry. 25th or the 11th, right? Thursdays. Usually. Nope, I'm in December still. What the hell? This is like
12th or the 26th.
I swear my computer is not.
What's wrong with the? Oh, right. So the 26th could be good, right?
Yes.
Yep. Yes.
So, does anybody have any preferences? I mean, I tend to think the 12th could be better because it's not as, otherwise it might feel a little close to the March one. I guess it's kind of the same thing. I don't really care. Is there anybody who has any opinions on this?
One of the grants is due February 13th. So if we met on the 12th, we could talk about whether we're getting that grant together in time.
Okay.
I'd like to push to try to apply to anything and everything and not try to pass up potential money. I understand what Susie's saying, but yeah, Anyway, I emailed you guys. There's a Green Schools Initiative information packet there and some of the stuff from the other night for you guys to read.
So does anybody want to make a move on this February date and we can vote on it?
I move for the 12th.
Okay.
I second that.
All right. All in favor? Mayu, aye.
Catalan, aye.
Jack, aye.
Longcoat, aye.
All right, perfect. So we'll meet on the 12th of February instead of the date that we had on break. All right. So then the next thing is this outstanding invoice, which I mean, I read the email, kind of like I read the email that was asking about it, and then I saw that Susie had emailed last night that it got paid from the finance committee, I believe. But can we talk a little bit about, like, I could use some background on this because it feels like it just kind of came out of nowhere this week. Is there anybody who has that information?
So what I found out from last night's meeting was that when Frank knew there was water in the tank, he, as a member of the building committee, decided rapidly that the tank had to get checked. And so he looked around. I don't know how the procurement part on that all went, just looked the other way. And he said, this company can do it. They can give us all the information. The tank is pressurized and yep, no leak there. Water's in it, get all the water out, get any mold that developed in there out, and get the system back up for running. And he did that because he's on the building repairs committee and felt he needed to act quickly. Somehow that invoice didn't go to somebody's desk, not clearly. And so even in last night, we're like, okay, so the FinCom will approve this money, but where does it go? It decided to go to the school because Frank's not really, he doesn't, the buildings committee does not actually pay things. I don't know how it happens. And again, this is the problem. We don't all know. Right. I don't know. So now the money is going to be sent to the school. The school can pay that invoice. And that was the reason of it. And that was the source of who initiated. And that's how, and he was very sensitive to, it was getting to be 90 days past due. And that's not a good way to run your business.
Right. And we didn't see it at the school level at all until we, as soon as we saw it, we acted on it and said, hey, what's going on? What's going on with this? We didn't know that was.
Or was it for the other 3 months?
That's a great question.
Okay. Fair enough.
I don't believe it was in town hall. I don't think it got there. I didn't read the invoice very.
But regardless, it's taken care of right now. And I think, again, this just points to the point that you're making, Susie, repeatedly tonight, which is we need to have some policies and we need to have some sort of a flow chart of how maintenance and repairs and emergency repairs get approved and paid for, so that these aren't just things that we're not constantly coming up with invoices that we're not aware are coming for things that may or may not, are not part of our budget, obviously. Perfect segue into the other piece, which Anne alluded to earlier, which was that I know from the last couple of years, we have a very avid pickleball group in town. And I received an email today from one of them questioning about this year. I guess they were told that we have to have the gym divider curtain down because, and in our follow-up emails, Anne kind of made it clear that it's not really, the curtain is not a danger. It is not in horrible shape, but it's the mechanics of the gears that move it up and down or move it in and out. I forget which way that one goes. But those are worn. And so the school has had a policy of trying to not put it up and down as much as possible. And because we now have this, now that we have this, now that we're a nut-free school, my understanding too, if I'm not incorrect, Anne, is that you guys pretty much keep this down so that you separate out the gym area from the cafeteria area, which of course is all the gym, but like one part is predominantly used as the cafeteria, the other part's used as the gym, so that you can separate out those things. Is that correct?
Exactly. And the gym for classes is outside the majority of the time. So it's only inside if it's really, really bad weather. And we're not trying to be a bad partner. It's just we're really trying to not come to the town with a $15,000, maybe could be more issue. And that was a way that we could easily say, well, when it's down, it's down. And the wear and tear of having it, because pickleball was meeting 2 days a week, and they were charged $5 a time. So that's another thing we might want to take a look at, is how we're structuring that, the lending of the building, especially if they need custodial support, and that's that's not neither here nor there, but that's just something that kind of came up because even just putting it up and down the 2 times a week, 4 times, then it's more wear and tear than what we're already doing. And we're really being so cautious about not opening it. Like we do our all school assemblies in that half of the room. We only opened it for the town hall meeting, and then we'll probably open it when we do the play. But we have been so cautious about that, and it's been a good plan for as far as the allergens go. It's on a designated side that children are eating in, and then it leaves the other area, the PE area, totally safe and allergen free. So we're not trying to be, like I said, we're not trying to be bad partners, but we're good renters. And that thing is not, it's not long for this world. And we're really trying to limp it through before we ask for another thing. So,
okay. So I think that, one of the things, and I think this is where things got a little confusing for our town person, was just this idea that first off, is it safe? Secondly, what's the point if we can't use this? And I think to your point, Susie, right? Like this idea that there's this thing that's broken at the school and they're not fixing it. Why aren't they fixing it? Now it's in the way of pickleball. And the recreation committee kind of weighed into just saying that they're glad to have been appraised and they'd be interested to hear what the thoughts of the school committee are. But initially I kind of responded to this, not defensively anyway, but I was just like, oh, what is this? But I do have this thought, and I know that money's tight and everything else, but this is one of those places where as a school that the town that many in the town feel like, well, this is like a huge part of our budget, whatever, having the ability to be able to use those public spaces in the school is one way that we are, kind of positive for the part of the town that pays the taxes but doesn't have kids in schools anymore. The people that often I've run into and talked to at town meetings when I show up, where people are like, well, why should I have to pay, full price for this school? I don't have any kids there, whatever. Like that, we know the piece, right? And so I guess this goes to Susie's point too, which is where do we find the money? Like if we're limping this along, it's something that's going to have to be fixed. It is a building repair maintenance sort of issue again. How do we get this in the pipeline to get it fixed? Because I do think it's important that we're able to allow, and I think that, and I want to say to you too, I put it in my notes, I'm going to check in with my school to see what we charge for outside groups coming into our school.
We measured it. They could do half court, but I actually met with a couple of different representatives from pickleball a couple of times, and I said the way that we're handling is we do a pickleball club, and we do it half court. So they're using that area, and we just shortened it, and they didn't want to do that at all. So I said, I'm not trying to be difficult, but honestly, like $15,000 for this to go up and down right now doesn't make a lot of sense to me because. So I'm flexible on other ideas that people might have, but also I just have to be really protective of the building and what's going on in it.
But again, this sounds like something that we also need to address and fix at some point. And so, if we can get that going sooner rather than later, so that we're not just limping it through. I mean, it sounds like something that the problem with limping something through is at some point it stops. And then it has to be dealt with. And especially if it's part of our allergy response plan in terms of the students we have that are super allergic, it just feels like something that should kind of get in the pipeline. And this is another place where we need to figure out whose responsibility is it to take care of it. Right. I saw Nate first, and then I think Katrina and Shannon.
Yeah, thanks. Right here is just this form that I got from capital planning. And it's just like each department, and it's like the thing that goes up to 2045. And so this is one of those things that we'll put in. I'll take that $15,000. I'll write a little form for the February 1st deadline and say we need to replace the mechanics for that divider. These are the kind of things that we need to know about and put in for capital planning. So this is exactly the kind of thing. I appreciate where you're coming from, man, and keep it down and stuff and kind of maintain it. But this is exactly the kind of thing that when something comes up like this and it's a big expense, let me know, let whoever's capital planning know, and put it in, and we put it in, and we put an application for it.
And not to look like I'm being greedy, but the stage, there's the soundproofing that's on the stage is also one of those things that was really done well. But now it's been so many years. There's an entire panel fell. Nobody got hurt. Everybody was fine. But it was like insulation and a panel. And then that also moves on a really intricate system of all of these panels kind of cooperating so the stage can open and close. And so that was another area where I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm like trying to limp together the lemon, but the systems are so that pulley system that it's on is there's not even companies that want to look at it. Like same with the door, like the intricate pieces of the door, it was really hard to find people that would even bid on it because they were like, are you serious? Just replace it. But we ended up finding Matt Foster, cheers to him, found somebody to do it. But so we're trying to be really cognizant of where the town is financially.
Yeah, that's awesome. But we also need to put these in, like we need to let the town know. Like these are things.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And like a lot of the stuff was 1993. Like there was a big like build and so it's like a lot of the stuff is like getting it to the end of its life. And so anything like this, just let me know. We'll try to put it in.
Okay. So it was, I think, Katrina next.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that's great, Nate, if we can like have this on the docket that we are planning to take care of this. But I also think, they can play pickleball, it's just not the pickleball they want to play. Yeah, that's not really like the primary.
No, that's a perfect explanation to me. Yeah.
I mean, it's not really like
It's not the
the primary directive of this school building. And if we're going to put ourselves in a position where we're trying to buy goodwill by opening and closing this, and then we don't have something that we need to function for an allergy-free school, then that puts us in a position that would be bad. And I also don't think it would actually buy us that much goodwill. So, if we have 15 grand that we then at minimum that we then have to emergency come up with, I think that's going to be a net negative rather than a positive.
And I'm definitely not advocating for that. I think I'm advocating as
I don't play pickleball though, so
I think that the idea is just like, let's get this thing fixed sooner rather than later, regardless of pickleball. Like, let's just try to get this thing fixed. All right, Shannon.
Yeah, when this came to me today, because I just same time you got it, I touched base with Ann and I have given her a directive to let's get some hard numbers. We're saying 15,000, but we don't have any hard numbers around that, right? That's what we're projecting. So I think we have to do that due diligence to find out what is it actually going to cost to repair it, and then bring it to this committee to talk about what are our case scenarios for that. Because I have two thoughts about it. I am a firm believer in that schools are a community building and we want everybody to be vested, and especially in rural towns where there are not many buildings in the town. I think, and I know Ann, as she said, we want to be good partners, but we have to, we want to make the building accessible to a number of things. And while right now we're doing the best thing to limp this along, we have to have some sort of viable plan for what does it look like to repair. And I also, if it does not work, we have a health obligation that will force our hand to make this an immediate repair.
Then it becomes an emergency repair instead of a plan for it. And
so I think getting it, and Caitlin and I will touch base about, possible funding pieces. But I think the first step, and Ann and I talked about it today, is that we are going to find out exactly what are we talking about for a repair. And then when we have those hard numbers, then we can really, come to Nate and say, where do we add this, and go to the town. Because although it's really nice for pickleball, if this went tomorrow, we would have to figure it out tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that.
And if you're able to get 3 bids, that would be fantastic. That's what they request, 3 bids. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and I just want to say too, Ann, that I feel like, and I think this was kind of in the email, but I appreciate you kind of reiterating that we are offering them half the gym. And if that doesn't work for their needs, we're sorry, but like that's what we can offer you. And it's not like we're saying you can't be here. Totally. We're just saying these are the protocols that we need to follow right now because we have a severe allergy within the school building. Susie.
Right. And it was really more about the cost of fixing something that we were not planning on making it be a top priority because we already solved the problem for the school needs. And
Right.
then measuring it out for the half court, I learned a lot about pickleball, and it's really not missing by much. It would just be a matter of them being flexible, not physically, but just really taking turns while they're pickleballing. And then, yeah. Okay.
Yep. Sorry that it's not a regulation. So Susie.
So the capital planning is working again to sort of re-ground themselves on what they need to do, what it needs to look like. A 40-year-old building, and I think it's 50-year-old building, really has to have a section of the capital plan where all the systems are listed. And the buildings committee, which also got reformed after many years, they've been much more careful about analyzing buildings and identifying things. I'm not sure how much they've done on the school, but the school is a town building that probably needs very careful analysis for each and every system. Movable walls, curtains, oil tanks, the whole 9 yards. And they can, like start it off and then figure out where they need more expertise to figure out actual things. But those systems are all are coming due in some schedule. And so I feel like it's good to put this particular item on the capital plan, but it's not this item. It's the whole building that
You're
really
saying we need to
needs
figure
be.
out how to get a full building assessment.
Yeah. And
And come up
the
with a plan
buildings committee could start that, I believe, or they could know what else for resources they need for analysis. But for the last, I don't know, 10 years, the FinCom has said, here are the risks of the future, a 40-year-old school building. Well, it's coming due. It's happening, and we can anticipate it a little better. And it needs to then be in the capital plan. We know that we have to replace the dump trucks on a certain schedule. We're going to know that 40-year-old buildings have to have a specific, and we've done a lot of work, the painting, the re-roofing, a little bit of sidewalk repair, but and the HVAC, the air exchanger, we do know that we have these things. But if it's written into the capital plan, it has much more, much more power.
Yes, that's what I'm gathering right now. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm going to put these things in, I'm going to put one in for the pavilion, even though it's like $60,000 bill, they need to know about this stuff. They need to get it on their radar that this is the reality, of having us.
To your point again, Nate, right? Like, this is the problem we keep running into is that, we do the roof or we do the painting and then we're like, well, there's this problem with the parking lot. It's like, there's going to be turnover in town departments and committees, and there has to be a systematic and centralized way of planning for all of the different things so that, like, that pavilion, okay, well, this year's not the pavilion, but we know it's been there. We've been talking about it for a couple of years. Eventually it becomes the time for that. And then we're not having to do these things where it's like, actually, we've been kicking the parking lot down the road for 10 years. But not everyone knows that. Not everyone remembers that. Exactly. But now it needs to happen. And it's not negotiable anymore. It's not like we can just patch it up. We can do no, like the back by the basketball court is constantly sloughing off chunks of pavement.
And kids get hurt. I mean, that's the truth, like he comes home, somebody slammed into the basketball court today, like, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, there seems to be a theme to tonight's meeting. All right. Moving on, I guess we'll move on to the superintendent's report at this point.
Okay, I'm just gonna give some highlights. I know we're getting kind of late here. We're continuing the work of implementing our high quality curriculum and working. We've been very fortunate in Shutesbury to be on the literacy consortium that is funded through the grant that the other 3 union schools got. They have very graciously allowed Shutesbury, even though we have a different curriculum, to get some of the PD around the best practices and is on that literacy consortium. So that work is continuing. We're working on budget development. Caitlin, Ann, and I are meeting regularly and looking over. We know we're going into a tough fiscal season, so we have been doing a lot of pre-work on that. Some Union 28 updates. The Commissioner of Education, our new Commissioner, Pedro Martinez, is visiting Swift River School tomorrow, the Friday before the winter break at 10 o'clock in the morning. I can't think of a worse time to come visit an elementary school, but we're excited to host him. He will be
I get
coming
excited every time you mention his name, and then I realize he's just a commissioner of education and not a former
Yeah,
baseball
we're we're excited to have him, but it's like the worst day ever to have him. But that will be going on December 9th. The director of curriculum, Lindsay Rodriguez, and I met with the parent teacher group officers from each of the union school districts to discuss ongoing parent collaboration, programming, support, and communication strategies. It falls in line with our focus on family and community outreach, but also trying to leverage our title resources that are spread thinly across 4 schools by trying to consolidate some of that and get, more bang for our buck sort of thing. And so we had a great first meeting with them. They gave us some great ideas about how they can work together to meet the needs of the schools. The CPAC group met yesterday at EES for a presentation by the speech and language pathologist Heather Peterson, who shared strategies with families can use to support their child's ability to plan and problem solve. And that group is open to all Union 28 families. And so there'll be ongoing parent training. And that was one of the things we talked about, is having the individual schools, PTO groups, help support and get the word out so that the families that could really use support in different topic areas will know where it's happening and when. Some legislative updates. I wrote in your report and I put links to other reports, but on November 18th, which I'm sure many of you have read, the U.S. Education Department informed state education leaders of its intent to transition the management of several major programs to other federal agencies. The announcement states that the majority of programs currently managed by the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education will transition to the U.S. Department of Labor via an interagency agreement. Those programs will include the title programs, Title 1A, Title 2A, Title 3, and Title 4A and B, and the McKinney-Vento Homeless Act. The IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, will for the moment stay with the Department of Ed, as will the Office for Civil Rights. USED officials noted that signed agreements with the Department of Labor and other agencies is only the first step. And it falls in line with what has been a very public mandate from the current administration about really seeking to narrow or close the Department of Ed and disperse that to other federal agencies. We don't really know what that means for us yet. I did link a statement from the DESE commissioner just saying that Massachusetts, is prepared to support schools in that transition and filling in gaps as they're able. And I also linked the statement from the Massachusetts Secretary of Ed, Patrick Tutwiler. And last Saturday, legislators Natalie Blais and Joe Comerford were joined by rural school advocates at an informational event hosted by the Leverett Democratic Committee to explain the complex dynamics that are part of the funding formula for Massachusetts public schools, and particular how that funding formula really impacts rural school funding. Their current top priorities include restoring the $4 million cut to rural aid that was in this year. So it didn't come in fully funded, and then we did all this advocacy and they cut from the already low funding that they gave us. So that they're advocating for that, for fully funding it in fiscal year 27 and to reopen the Chapter 70 funding formula. I provided the links. They have a great website that has a lot of resources, places that you can get template letters to be a part of the advocacy. It's so user-friendly for the people who say, I don't have time to write a letter. Like, they could truly cut and paste and sign it and send it off. they were pretty blunt about that. We've done a lot of talk about changing the Chapter 70 formula, but that is a really long process and it's labor intensive. And even if they started it today, we would not see the impact of that for 4 years out. And while they're still advocating for that, they really feel the most timely relief for rural schools will come in our advocacy around fully funding the rural aid as is earmarked, and and advocating that they use the millionaires tax fund, which can only be used for education and transportation, to do that. And they have taken in more revenue than they anticipated and yet cut rural aid. So that is really where they're asking for lots of advocacy efforts, because it's far less red tape, to just say it in a more, layman's terms, than the Chapter 70 change in formula, though we desperately need it, is not timely. It's not timely relief for us. And that is my report. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Susie.
I want to add to that. I was at that meeting, and actually Joe Comerford said it really has got to come out of the general budget, which is $60 billion budget, and 60 million wouldn't, it needs to come out of that. Because I went after the fair share money in that conversation, and she's like, really, it has to be in the general budget. But the big piece I took away, and I'm writing to all the people I know to send them this website and the link for Take Action, is that the governor is going to set her budget up and release it usually by the third week in January. If she gets a blizzard of emails, and I'm trying to do a postcard process too, if she gets a blizzard of them, then she'll know, first of all, that Western Mass and rural schools exist, and that they're truly hurting, and that there's a commission that defines how to approach this, and it hasn't been approached at all. And if she sets up an expectation that this is an issue that will be addressed, then the House and the Senate and the conference committee and the joint committee that gets it all done will have a different starting place. She does not shown a lot of response to this issue. So we need to have, once you get that link from Shannon, it has to go to everybody even people that aren't in Western Mass. And they have to say, this is important. So the FinCom met last night. They edited the message I'm going to send out. I've already been talking to Elizabeth Murphy in the PTO. But I was working on a postcard process, which I still will do, but that's an in-person event. This is from the comfort of your own home. Plenty of information on the website. You can press that Take Action and you can do it. And it really has to be like everybody has to send something in.
And you do have the link already in my report. It's a hyperlink on the word "here" at the end. If you have any trouble accessing it, please let me know, but you have access to that website.
Thank you. Nate?
Can we send this off to, as a school committee, can we send this link off to like every parent, like go through the directory and just be like, school committee would like you to? Can we send off an email saying that to everyone? Anybody want to do that? Can we do that?
The school cannot do that.
As a school committee.
The school committee can, but you'll have to access, I'll have to check with Adam. I think you might want to team up with your PTO and do a joint email. And I think accessing that to everybody but the school, and there's big rules about what the school can do.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about. Yeah.
Thanks. So PTO and school, so we could reach out to Elizabeth Murphy.
To Elizabeth, yep. And say like, and we can, in PTO and school committee would like you to do this.
Yeah, I'd be happy to work on Nate with her and drafting, or her and you, and draft our email, and I'd be happy to go through the as much as possible, go through the directory and put that together. I guess that would make sense.
And the FinCom is going to put their announcement in the Road Town News as well as the town website, and it has the direct link for ruralschoolsma.org.
Susie, and
Yeah, I
you're
wonder.
the
That would be my other question. Would be if we could put it in the Road Town News as outside business. If like the school, the way that anybody does, like if the school committee put in the Road Town News a little flyer, expressing our hope that people would reply to the survey or would send this message. Katrina.
I was just going to say, Susie, your postcard event that you're thinking about, would that be something that could be included in the newsletter? I think, obviously a lot of people are going to prefer to do something via email, but if it's an open option for folks, I've always heard that postcards are very effective when you send legislative
And so
feedback.
Elizabeth said she would work with the classroom liaisons, but what I found is that I felt the postcards was a sitting and doing. And so as soon as the new library opens up, we'll be able to have that at a table, talking to people as they come and go. And the postcards that we designed have check boxes. Yes, it will affect me as a taxpayer. I'm writing to you as a retiree, blah, blah, blah. But the thing that was hard is that I went to two places to talk to people. They were a happy audience to hear it, but filling in the information is difficult. This website has all the information, and emails are another way. So they both have to happen. And I've been talking to Elizabeth about both of them. And so the FinCom signed off on the last message. They edited last night's message and today was a very busy day. So tomorrow I'm sending that to Elizabeth. If you want, we could sign it, Susie Mosier, or we can sign it the Shutesbury Finance Committee and the Shutesbury School Committee, or you can choose two separate ones. I think the more, the better.
Okay. Great. Thank you. All right, moving on to Caitlin. Thank you for your patience. Sorry.
So, in the interest of time and the length of the meeting, I've shared the expenditure report with everyone. I'm not going to present it. It hasn't changed much since the last meeting. We're still we have a low amount of money to get us through the rest of the year. It's not that we are anticipating on running out, but we have to be conscious of everything of emergency fixes and repairs or if there's staff that go out or some things we have to kind of just be very careful and be mindful of the budget. Right now, we have about it looks like if we've kind of encumbered everything we know we have to spend, but not things like, the grounds maintenance, equipment maintenance, things that could come up, library materials, some supplies, those little lines. We have about $69,065 that we have for the rest of the year to get us through any of those, purchases of stuff that has to happen. Like one of the lines for, custodial supplies, we don't encumber because we don't really know, but that's probably going to be used. So we just keep a very close eye on it for the remainder of the year. I'm going to get to the budget. We have not made any changes since the budget was first presented last month, but we have dug into where do we go from here. So the budget that we have currently, and I will project, we'll share that if I can.
It should be.
Yeah, it's a me thing. I got it. There we go. I'm just making sure it's the right size. Oh, here we go. Sorry if it's a little bit small. Every time I've been using this and try to make it bigger, all of a sudden it'll kick over, and I don't know why. So the current budget we have right now has an increase of 6.32%. We haven't made any changes to those lines. With total funding, And expenditures of 5.44%. The reason why why the budget summary is at 6.32 is because that is what we are asking for from the town. 5.44 is the increase that our actual spending is because, and I know the town is has the same problem, our other revenues are either staying the same or they're drying up. So I'm not going to go over line by line, but if you have questions, you can always email me and I'll come back with some answers at the next meeting. But there haven't been any changes since last month to that 6.36%. The funding uses from grants and school choice. So our Title IV and Title II-A grants, we are not expecting for next year. Our IDEA grant went up a little bit, so we're hoping that it stays the same. Our REAP grant went up a little bit. Circuit breaker, we should have some circuit breaker funds for next year. And the rural aid, though, that's one of the big ones, that has decreased. So our rural aid, we were budgeted for 75,000, 80,000 the year before. We can only really confidently budget for 60,000, and that's if they don't decrease rural aid. Early childhood revolving will budget for the same 35,000. And for school choice, we would like to reduce it a little bit from 138,000 to 130,000. So here's the reality of the budget. The two lines that we know are the biggest driver to the increase are our programs with other schools, our tuition to non-public schools, private school, out-of-district tuition, and transportation. If we did not have these two increases, not even just the amount that we had budgeted this year, but the increase from this year to next year, we would have a 2.39% increase because we have made reductions. We have kept a paraprofessional position unfilled, and we are taking it out of the budget for next year. So we've been mindful of this increase. It would be 2.39. It's not because of these special education increases. So that kind of brings me to, in my report, I listed out, let me see if I can share this one now. So the 6.32% increase is going to be a hard sell to the town, and we are aware of that. If we are to decrease from here, it would have to be salaries. It would have to be reductions in staffing. So with do you see my director's report right now with the reduction amount table? Okay, thank you. I don't want to be talking about this and have you still be looking at the budget. So here's a little bit of a table of what we would need to reduce by to get to certain percentages. And Shannon and Ann and I talked about this a lot, and we are the ones that are going to be deciding what those reductions would be, but we would like some direction from the school committee, from the town, from what you think your community would be able to vote on for the budget at the annual town meeting. So if we kept it as it is right now, which is a level service, actually less than level service because we've already removed one position, we're at 6.32%. Here's if we reduced by 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, and so on up to 80, it will decrease the percent increase down to 3.24. And we want to open the conversation and the dialogue of where does a school committee and the town think we should go with this budget?
I mean, It's a tough one because to me, in a certain respect, like a municipal budget, like $80,000 doesn't feel like a whole ton, really. For like I know it is, but I'm just saying it doesn't feel like it's. I mean, I don't know what that would come down to. I would assume that's a position plus, most likely, maybe 2 positions, and we don't really have that to cut. But I also know that number 6.32, and then we don't even know what the regional budget is going to require of us either, with Amherst. So I need you to go so I can finish this meeting, please. So I don't. It's a hard one. I don't know. Like I'm never really quite clear on how we go about selling it to the town. I feel like the way that you just described it is super compelling. We're losing a whole lot of funding. People should know that, based on really. I mean, it starts with the federal government, but also rural aid and the rest of this. I don't know. I guess that was my long-winded way of saying I really don't know.
I know this is a really hard conversation to have. We understand the challenges of the town, of the residents, the taxpayer. Like no one, I think, is going into this year and looking at anyone's budgets and thinking, we're in great shape. It's a hard year and they're hard conversations.
Other committee members?
What did we ask for last year in terms of percent increase?
It was 3%.
That's a great question. I will bring that up in just a second.
It was 5%, wasn't it, Caitlin?
I think it was around 5. We had similar challenges with special education, but not as much. I can look. Oh, and last year was the first year budgeting for the new contract.
Right.
So that was another hurdle. This year we were budgeted this year for the contract because it passed. So next year we don't have that challenge as much. It's just mostly the special education. And it looks like we were at a 5.03 last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, to my way of thinking, asking for 5.03 is not crazy. But I'm just, my thought is always like, how do we ask for what we need and make the case for what we need? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, if we're not even at that 6%, we're still not at level service, right? So we're already taking a hit. So this is just me, naively, and maybe other people have more informed opinions, but it seems like we should ask for what we need and what we're willing to ask for, which seems like the 6-ish% number. And then isn't that kind of the conversation we have at the town meeting if it becomes a problem? But if we got 5% funded last year, and I don't think it was an issue, it's not great. Nobody wants to like. What is other thoughts, Susie? Probably.
I agree with you. I think that's kind of what you do.
I throw my support behind that for the first, at least to start with. That's my first.
You say this is what it's the same with the capital planning. It's like, this is what we need to get to run the school,
And it's not,
and it's up to you guys the town to figure out if they want to say yay or nay on it. And we just say, this is the reality, Sorry.
Shannon?
Yeah, I want to make sure we have a budget that, while I agree with you, right? Like, as an this is what we need to run the school. And we have gone, when I tell you, we have been so deep in the budget because all of our municipalities are in this spot about looking just so minutely to be, a good partner. However, if we get to the town floor and it doesn't pass, we go to a 1/12 budget. And I want to be clear, that will mean far more cuts because we will not have the funds to maintain that. So while I agree with you, I just want to be transparent. It's a big gamble because if the town says, can't do it, the rules are we go to a 1/12 budget and
1/12.
yep, you get what your budget currently is divided over 12 months and that
Yeah. Okay.
Something
So-
else can get worked out.
right while you work
What
it
was
out.
that, Susie?
You do that when a budget doesn't pass, then you have to go to 1/12 until you work out some kind of pattern that can be workable.
Mhm.
I guess
And I'm not
guessing
saying
just
not to do that. I mean, that's this committee's prerogative, right? I'm just want to be with my lens as the superintendent, just let you know that that could potentially mean that we lose some people because even you tell, you might be back in a month or two, they're going to look for other places. And so, um, we'll take your direction, but I just want to make sure everyone is aware of what that would look like if it was not passed at the town level.
Well,
Susie, do you have a risk assessment kind of for that with your institutional knowledge?
Do I have what?
A risk assessment? I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out here for our decision making is like how likely is it that we would with a 1% more than we asked for last year increase run into something like that, do we think? It's reading tea leaves, but
It's also it's about the context of last year was high. That was a high number for us, and this year is higher. And that's true across the board. It's true in health insurance. Last year, the increase at 5.03 was 124,000 more for the school. The regional school last year was 126,789 increase. So that's like, $250,000 of our revenue went to that to support it. And people want to support it. But now we're going to the next year and nothing has changed yet. In fact, when the state made the rural aid cut, it's like, really? You don't understand this. And so this one that's at 6 point, oh, well, I think the difference is 160,000. So last year was 124, then it's 160. And you can hear people say, it keeps going up. Yep, so does my life. My life
Yeah.
is going up. It's called inflation. There's nothing in the state aid that deals with inflation. So it's just like everybody has to recognize what the pieces are. It's not about, right or wrong. It's these are the pieces people are wrestling with. And health insurance is a big one. And I want to support the workers to have health insurance. Their part of the premium went up 43%. It's, so those are some numbers to think about.
Thank you, Susie. Shannon, how about?
I'm sorry, I forgot to put that down again.
Leah's hand is up.
I don't see Leah. Leah, go ahead.
Yeah, I know, and I believe our town had this last year where the FinCom hosted meetings with all the different committees to talk through budgeting. So we would be able to talk through our budget with them if we, if they're planning to have those conversations. So I don't think we need to gamble for the annual meeting, like as part of the general conversations that FinCom sets up. I think we'll be able to get a sense of what they think the town could handle. Do you have any information about that, Susie?
Yeah, January 13th is the hearing, is the time for the FinCom to sit down with the school. I've shown them the budget you shared with me on November. I'm starting to get deeper into the numbers to look at some of the factors. Some of those factors, when you identify them, then people have to say, yeah, well, we have a student we need to support, and here it is. And that's what this increase is about. And the rest of the budget's being held as tightly as possible. So I am going to share some of those numbers with Caitlin. She's been really helpful talking to me when I get lost in the weeds. And January 13th is when you will meet. I said to them that this was the first draft, that there was some discussion about whether there would be any suggested cuts or changes. And so the numbers that you generated should also be shared. And the committee needs to, I'm telling you, this whole, I've been on the FinCom for a while. This is a really overwhelming time. We don't have enough time to discuss it. And, it's the maintenance of the building and it's blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to try to get them to talk about it. We're having our next meeting on January 7th. And I'm going to try to get them to wrestle out what their real questions are so I can get them to Caitlin. So when she arrives or when everybody arrives on January 13th, we can have an informed discussion. That's always the best kind. And yeah, and to appreciate like Shannon's thing that they meet with the other departments. Yeah. We were also trying to do the newsletter. We did one in November. The one in December is just about to come out, and it tells you what kinds of things we wrestle with to get a budget together. And so this one is called Challenges and Contexts. And then we're going to do tools that we can use. We used a fair amount of cash reserves, and we boosted the taxes beyond 2.5 for FY26. It looks like some of those same tools will be needed for FY27.
Okay. Happy times. All right. Sorry, I've lost my spot here. I made my screen big to see Caitlin's report. All right, and it is your turn.
Fantastic. Thank you. So we had a really exciting bunch of visitors that came to our school. It was the sixth graders. They did a living history museum, and they composed slideshows that gave information about their historical figure, and then they read their reports from a first person point of view. And the students sort of went through as if somebody went up to them, they would basically be on the stage and then told the historical figures' life stories. So it was amazing. I listed in my report a bunch of the famous people that came. It was really incredible activity for the students. They did not disappoint. The students have really been enjoying the snow. We've been outside every day humanly possible. I think they had to make an announcement when it was severely below zero, where the kids were still disappointed that they couldn't be out there, but they're definitely enjoying the snowing hill and their play activities that are covered in snow. We had an amazing turkey trot this past Thanksgiving. There was a huge community turnout. We had a children's run too that was really well attended. And even though it was raining, the kids were really real troopers about it. There are pictures, I think, it's on the Facebook page for the PTO, if anybody's interested to see that. So in the interest of time, if anybody has any questions or anything else, I'm happy to. Is that Silas?
Yeah, he's curious if you're going to have recess outside tomorrow.
What is going on? What's the weather? It wasn't public hearing.
Yeah.
What's the weather tomorrow looking? How's it looking?
Windy.
Do you want to go outside?
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty windy.
I want to go out.
Window warning.
All right. We'll talk in the morning. We'll see what the projections are. But good to see you. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer. And then there you go.
I'm curious about you have the school improvement plan here as well. Is that something you were going to address tonight, or is that just for us to look at?
For you to peruse. Yeah, definitely. Okay. So if anybody has any questions, we can go over it the next time.
We do have to take a vote on that though. So if we don't vote, which is fine, we will have to vote in January because technically the school committee is supposed, and we talked about it at the last meeting and looked at it very briefly. So we can just put that on your radar that you will have the next month to look at it, but we'll have to take a quick vote on it in January.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't see you had your hand up.
And I was wondering if you could talk about your involvement with Ron Berger and bringing him to the sixth grade class, if that's in sixth grade class. And I was talking to Ann yesterday, and she was like, "Oh, I used to attend a school in DC. My kids attended a school, and it was started by a guy in Shutesbury." And and then we had this whole conversation about Ron Berger, and I was like, "Oh, Ann is bringing him in." So I thought, I wish Ann was here, but I thought it would be a good thing to talk about, let everyone know.
absolutely amazing. He is a town treasure. He helped start and still works for EL. He was a classroom teacher, I believe, for over 25 years, and he did a lot of hands-on learning with students. He had the sixth graders map out and actually plan the addition that went on. The kids had a lot of input. And I don't just mean the building, I also mean right down to the furniture that was used in the classrooms. So he came by. He is still friendly with the teachers that were there when he was there. And we did a little a walk down memory lane for him. And it was really interesting to hear just all the parts of that were really student designed, the bookcases, the way that the dry erase boards were curated, just really interesting. And so he, as part of being spearheading the EL curriculum, which is the curriculum that we use for literacy, it also has science and social studies integrations as well. He wrote a lot of those units. So it was great when he came to fifth grade. They happened to be in the middle of Esperanza Rising, and he was able to say, that's a lot of the work that I have done with the team. And so he goes around internationally now to present on the different ideas about the exponential learning and talk about how different it is with being a knowledge-based program, and what how elevated a lot of the activities are that the students do, and the deeper thinking. And he has his heart still in Shutesbury, so he has opened up he had resources. He donated a bunch of books. He made a very sizable donation to our PTO last month, and he is happy to help support us in any way. So I know a lot of teachers and staff have been interested to reconnect with him and to have him just come and talk more about different components of EL that we might not have tapped into its full potential in the past, and to get his feeling on that. So the works are in progress. When he's back in town, he's traveling a lot. We're gonna have him come and do have some time with him. It was so great
to
meet him. Yeah, he's an incredible resource.
Yeah, I think that's something that people in the town should know about. I've heard from several people about that before you even brought it up. So, like, oh, they still doing the Ron Berger stuff. And so I think that's something that we should try to figure out how to communicate to the town as another thing that, that they do.
One of its big legacy projects is the portfolios at the end of the year.
Right.
And Leah Jack was my partner in crime last year when we got to watch the students do their presentations about their sort of entirety of their schooling in review. And it's really an interesting, the kids are very honest about how they've grown and what they've learned and what they hope to learn in their future. And he was a big part of that work.
Amazing. Thanks.
Yeah, I remember reading his book prior to, or in my first year of teaching, without realizing that he was from Shutesbury or was in Shutesbury. So yeah, it's great.
I just had a quick question.
Yes.
So for the school improvement plan, is this in its final version? Like, is it ready for a vote? Because I see like there's some sections that don't have.
Oh, that is not ready. That is the wrong link. I will update the link. Yes, that is definitely not ready. Stand by. I will share the right link. Thank you. Good catch. Perfect. All right. Just give me a minute. I too have the big screen right now so I can see everybody's faces. So that's just going to take me a minute. Yeah, that would be helpful to be able to review the actual school improvement plan that we're using. Okay. All right. Let me make sure we have a couple of different versions. All right.
So maybe we can just put it on for next month, and you can send us the link when you're ready.
Yeah, sure. I'm sending it to your emails right now. Trevor, would you like it as well? Are you all set?
All right. I am not a person to deliberate on it, so that's fine.
Okay.
All right. So moving on. We don't have our Amherst Pelham representatives report. The Joint Supervisory Committee. Oh, sorry, Nick, go ahead.
It's too bad again. Anne's not here, but we had a big discussion yesterday. She and I, something she brought up to me, that we are going to have to discuss at some point. I think is the sixth grade, and something she brought up was having that the Amherst sixth grade starts in that middle school starts in sixth grade for Amherst, and then seventh and eighth for Pelham and Leverett and Shutesbury, and how that is kind of a disadvantage to those kids, that the Amherst kids kind of have a home field advantage in middle school. And she would probably talk about it more, but like something I brought up, and she's like, well, we're going to have to discuss whether the sixth grade is going to start going down there. And I kind of pushed back and was like, or the opposite, or we keep the seventh and eighth graders and send the ninth graders down. And I said, from what I know, that the building is has a 250 student capacity, and we're at 100 and something. And so the potential of keeping those students, why would we want to send, that, from what I've heard, that building is lead and full of mold, and why would we send our kids, more kids down there? And, I don't know, but it's a discussion that she said that are going to have. And I just want to throw that out to us to kind of think about. Yeah.
I know we did some preliminary discussions on this. I want to hear what Shannon has to say, and I'll add my thoughts to that as well.
If you and that certainly it's a conversation you should be having as school committee. But you really should form a committee to look at that has representatives from the town, from the union, and from Shutesbury, because it's not a simple process. If you've been following anything about Pioneer in Turner's Falls are looking to regionalize, there's a whole, but like, you have to buy into where you're going, you have to buy out of where you're leaving, you have to get your plan approved through DESE. So it is not just a quick, hey, we'd like our kids to take a part of that, and you can just kind of pick up your sixth grade and move them. And so just I do think it's something the committee should be talking about, right? Because you're looking at what's best for your sixth graders. That's your charge from your community. But just know that it would have to have a broader committee to dive into what that looks like. And if Amherst even is looking to accept you earlier, right? I mean, that's a whole other thing. So, and they have a new middle school, which you proportionally pay for, right? So
no, they have a new elementary school, which we don't have any.
New elementary. So I just want you to know that when you have those conversations, it really is a very broad conversation that stakeholders beyond this group have to be at that table.
Yeah. And so I think, we talked about this when, maybe it wasn't last year, maybe it was 2 years ago. We talked about this when Jackie was on her way out. And I think Jackie did a really good job of kind of explaining the two types of students that we have in the sixth grade at Shutesbury. You've got the kids that are very kind of worldly. They're on their phones. You have to keep them and then you have the kids that really benefit from that last year before heading to the big school. And I think she was really great on her way out of saying, I'm not telling you one way or the other what to do. I'm saying I can see benefits to both sides. But my understanding too is that if Amherst wanted to take Leverett and Shutesbury kids in the sixth grade, we'd have to reopen the contract. We'd have to reopen our regional agreement and figure out a whole lot of things there. As it stands right now, if they move their sixth grade up to the regional school, they've got to do that as a substantially separate entity. They can't share administrators with the regional school system. They have to have their own kind of stand-in academy for sixth graders if they move them up there right now, because it's not part of the regional agreement. So I think we should have that discussion. I know that when this first hit the news a couple of years ago, as they were talking about redoing that Wildwood Elementary and then needing someplace to put the sixth graders, we did have a little bit of talk about it. We did get some communication from town members, not a lot, but more than we normally get. And people seem to be very much on the side of trying to protect Shutesbury as a pre-K through 6. I do think it's interesting, your idea. I think it's interesting, your idea, Nate, about like looking at it from the other place. You know, if we're opening up a contract, if we're opening up the agreement, then maybe there's a possibility of talking about something like that. I have not thought about that at all. But, you know, I think that the other problem that we talked about when we talked about this before was that we struggle, obviously, like we just talked about, we struggle with funding our schools as it is. To lose the 6th grade would be, you know, at some point, my concern would be that schools like Shutesbury and Leverett, it starts to become harder and harder to have our own community schools. And you can look out towards like Rowe, you can look at these other towns where they've had to shut down their elementary schools, and now their kids are traveling out of town to that. And that's one thing that I definitely would want to try to avoid at all costs, looking down the road again, right? So I think if Anne is worried because there's more talk again down there of like actual movement on this, then we should definitely put it on our agenda. But I think that anytime we want to talk about it in general, I'm down for it as well. So any other thoughts before we?
I want to keep my 6th graders. So
yeah, I do think that, like, I think that it is a very, I understand the dynamics of like they go in there and the Pelham and Amherst kids have already been mixing it up for a year. You know, they come from these really small schools into this much bigger environment. I get all of that. But I think there's also a benefit to staying in that small school for that one more year too, especially when it's a school of the quality of Shutesbury. So I don't know, but we should talk about it some more. Joint Supervisory Committee did not meet last month. Their next meeting is January 12th. CES, is there anything to report from there, Leah?
Yeah, just quickly, the committee is moving along with finding a new executive director, or excuse me, the CES is moving forward with finding a new executive director. We are planning to have a final round of interviews on the 14th. And hoping to select a finalist shortly thereafter for start date in February. And then we also have another full board meeting on January 28th.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're moving on to the policy review. We've got our first read on academic freedom, school year, school calendar, and school day. So consider them read. Second read, first vote on school community relations goals, visitors to the schools, access to buildings and grounds, student fundraising activities, and relations with parent and booster organizations. So we could have a move in a second and we could discuss if there's anything to discuss.
I move to have the items, the policies in the second read, first vote category move to final vote.
I second that.
All right. Any discussion on these policies?
I did have one on the KA.
Okay.
One,
K.
and it was K. There was just can you just to get examples of what those things are? I'm trying. I just had it written down. I don't have it sitting in front of me, but if somebody's seeing KA,
so you've got effective, accurate, and meaningful communications that facilitate dialogue, encourage involvement in district programs, and create community advocacy for its public school.
Yeah.
Volunteer programs that provide mutually enriching experiences for our students, staff, and community volunteers. Recognition programs that publicly honor the contributions of our students, employees, and community partners and express pride in our individual and collective accomplishments. And community service efforts which enable the district staff and students to express their commitment to the community.
So I was just wondering about examples of those. Thanks.
I can share one, just
Leah.
given one of the opportunities that I had last year. I think Anna's, and probably Jackie before her, have done a really good job of trying to get the community involved. One was with the portfolios, the student portfolios at the end of the year. That was a really nice opportunity. But it does seem like there is so much going on. I think the Quabbin trip is also a really interesting thing because that's funded by a community member. And then the students are able to go and like literally like volunteer at the Quabbin. So it seems like there's a lot, but I did just want to share my one experience my one experience and how great it was, and I felt like connected to the school community.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we'll take you anytime, Leah. You come on down. All of you are more than welcome.
Are there anybody else with other ideas of like, well, I mean, yeah. So, I think there's some of this that happens a little bit in the newsletter. We let pickleball use half our gym.
I just didn't know if we needed to be doing more as a school committee and, if we're doing anything.
Yeah, I mean, like it's tough because I think of like how often the people that are involved in the school are involved in like, the turkey trot and, some of the PTO pieces and all of that. But I don't know, is that community service efforts? I don't know. That's part of that too, I guess. I do think the Road Town News, the newsletter, is really helpful in terms of the accurate and meaningful communications. But I also think that there's probably ways that we can improve our community outreach and engagement as school committee members and as just district members. Yeah. Is there anything we want to add to? Did you want to put some examples of this into the actual policy, or what were you thinking, Nate?
No, I was just trying to get my head around it.
Yeah.
And just trying to. Thank you. Thanks, Leah, for helping too.
Yeah. All right. So we have a movement. Do we have a second? Do we have any more discussion? Okay. Then all in favor. Mayu, aye.
Catalano, aye.
Jack, aye.
Longcoat, aye.
I think that's unanimous. All right. So we've got our final vote on these ones that we've looked over a number of times. The KBA school parent guardian relation goal, the GBEBC gifts and solicitations by staff, KI visitors to the school, and IHAM-R health education. Again, yes, thank you.
I move to have KBA, GBEBC, KI, and IHAM-R moved to a final vote.
I'd second that.
All right. Any discussion thereof? All right. All in favor? Mayu, aye.
Catalano, aye.
Jack, aye.
Longcoat, aye.
Right on. Unanimous. All right. So that brings us finally. Oh, this might be one for the record books of late. We have some upcoming meetings that are on the table here. So we've remembered that we're changing our February meeting. I believe it was to the 12th. Is that right? 13th
Yes.
was first in my head. But our next policy and school committee meetings are on January 22nd. Budget and personnel is to be announced. The Union 28 Joint Supervisory is Monday, March 16th. So we still got a little bit of time there. Wow, that's a long time away. We also have a multi-committee meeting. I'll send out that email in case any of you want to attend in terms of the green grants, energy grants, and that sort of thing. And then we'll be looking forward to, in February, getting together with the finance committee to talk over the budget needs and such.
What did Susie mention? January 12th for that meeting? Was she correct in that? Was it January 12th?
I thought it was the 13th for you're talking about the finance meeting?
Yeah.
That's a finance meeting.
Yeah, that's on the 13th is
Of
what,
January.
yes.
Okay. We all go, that's our school committee FinCom meeting, right?
Oh, that is the 13th. I still had it in my notes I've written that down at the beginning of the meeting from my previous notes when she said it was probably going to be in February. Okay.
That's what I'm trying to figure out because I got confused there.
Yeah. So Leah, was your understanding that is the date of our meeting with them?
Yeah, my understanding is that January 13th is when Caitlin will be going to talk through the budget with the FinCom.
Yep. And then I think so there's that, and then what were you saying? Sorry.
I was just gonna add, it sounds like Susie is priming them on the 7th of January for that conversation. So
yeah, and I know she mentioned last meeting that we would all get together sometime in February, but maybe.
Okay, so those are two different meetings.
I think they're two different meetings.
Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Right. Yeah, because I think that the other thing here too is that like Caitlin said, nothing's changed, nothing's final. I think it would be a little early for us to go and kind of shake that stuff out more. Any other future agenda items that we need to be thinking of? Anybody? Okay. So let's get a move to adjourn if we could.
No moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor? My UI.
Jack, I.
Lonco, bye. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Have a good holiday, everyone. Bye.
Happy holidays.